Hi, and welcome to Bookies, the only YouTube channel where when it gets monetized, 100% of the proceeds are going to go to local libraries and literacy programs. And the way you can help is simply to subscribe to this channel, and hopefully you're going to enjoy some good book reviews. And everybody, this is a great day because I get to review The Troop by Nick Cutter. Stephen King described this novel as scaring the hell out of him, and I'm not alone in describing it this way, but I'll go ahead and lay this out for you. This novel is part Lord of the Flies and part parasitic horror, and the combination is excellent. So this is the second book of our book hunt for October and Halloween in 2025. I hope you read it, and I think you're really going to enjoy it, and here's why. So first, I want to assure you that this is going to be a no spoiler review. I don't want to ruin this novel for anybody, and it just doesn't make sense. It was such a good novel, I'd hate to wreck the surprise for you in it. So I'm going to keep myself limited to the information that you would get from the book jacket or the publisher's description of the novel. And so here it is. The underlying premise is a Boy Scout troop goes on their annual retreat to Falstaff Island, which is a tiny little island off the coast of Prince Edward Island in Canada. They only have the scoutmaster with them, so Tim Riggs, he's the only adult with them. And, this annual getaway, it's kind of like a good old reliable, comfortable getaway that the boys can rely on every year. So on the first day, the boys set up camp, and in the dead of night, they hear an outboard motor engine going. So somebody's arriving on the boat. And that person eventually does arrive at the campsite, and he's really pale and he's emaciated. And the most striking thing about this individual is he's violently hungry. From there, let's just say the weekend lasts a heck of a lot more than a weekend, and it's going to result in a gruesome and brutal struggle for survival amongst these boys. First thing I think I should do is tell you what I liked about the novel. And I'll start off with, unlike Stephen King, this novel did not scare the hell out of me. It's not my fault. I just don't scare easily. However, this novel has scared a lot of other people, but what it did do for me is it was gruesome and it was creepy. I think one of the skills of this particular author is he's really, really good at putting you in the narrative of the novel. He makes it so you feel what's happening. And yeah, for this kind of novel, you need to feel it in your bones. And Cutter does that for us, so excellent. Secondly, when you watch a slasher movie, you know everybody's going to die, right? There's no spoilers when you pick up a slasher movie. And, when you pick up this book, that's really not a spoiler for you. Many of these boys are going to die in gruesome and horrific ways. And so you aren't going to get that comfort that you might have got with a slasher movie where the dumb jock and the slutty girl are going to be the first to get offed. Unfortunately, not here, right? With the exception of one kid, Shelly, who, by the way, is a total sociopath, all these kids are really good kids. And, so a little bit of a trigger warning here. If you cannot handle any aspect of violence towards children, don't read this novel because, frankly, it's all about violence towards children. So if you were expecting that a novel called The Troop, where a bunch of boys go to a remote island, that nobody was going to die, you will be horribly disappointed in this novel. There's no mom and dad to comfort these boys. There's no adult to try to make sense of what's happening to them. None of that. And that's what I liked about it, actually. That sense of being a child and being isolated and afraid. And even in the company of other children, you still feel isolated and afraid because there's no adult comfort. Cutter does a really, really noble job in putting that fear right into the narrative. The third thing I really liked about the novel is Cutter's writing style. I would describe it as very masculine. And I don't mean that it's chauvinistic or anything. I think it's appropriate to a novel that's describing the inner thought processes of preteen boys. Cutter really does a good job of getting inside the mind of, let's say, a boy from 12 to 15 years old, and rooting around and bringing out their insecurities, their hopes, their fears, the home life you don't want anybody to know about, all of those insecurities and failures that are kicking around in a young boy's mind. Cutter really brings out and exploits to the benefit. It adds to the fear factor. It adds to the narrative and the respect that you understand which each of these 5 boys is thinking and feeling. That is an excellent aspect of this novel, the writing style. I would also describe it as somewhat cinematic. By cinematic, I mean Cutter is able to give us a point of view that is remote and pulled back. So you see the big picture of what's going on with the boys. But also, Cutter really excels at being specific in the detail. And this is a horror novel, right? You expect the author of an excellent horror novel to be able to write in gruesome detail. You know, if the author isn't painting the picture of the horror for you, it's not going to be a good horror novel. It's just not. Cutter does that here, though, so I think you'll enjoy that. My point is, if you combine this writing style, both the masculinity of it and the internal dialogue of a preteen boy, and the cinematic view of it, both removed and up close, I think if you combine those aspects with the paranoia and the helplessness that these boys feel, you're going to get a really bang-up horror novel, and that's what you get with The Troop. Another thing I really liked about this novel is the characters. If the author isn't able to invest you in the characters so that you like them, you root for their well-being, you know, it's like, oh man, please don't kill off that particular boy. I really like that boy. If the author can't do that for you, the novel's going to fall flat. Cutter is able to do that for you. But he adds a little spice in there, right? So I'll make a contrast. One of the boys, Max, is just an all-around good kid. You really like Max. He's a good boy. Contrast him to Shelley. Shelley is a total sociopath. Shelley is evil. And so, you know, you get these contrasts between the two, and it creates this nice universe of characters. You've got Max, the good, all-around good boy. Shelley, totally opposite end of that spectrum. And then you get some other characters that represent kind of in-between values. You get the kid that is somewhat of a bully, but he doesn't really know he's a bully because he's just a successful, you know, athlete, and he kind of doesn't understand how he comes off. Then you get the nerdy kid, you know, Newton, and you're really going to like him. You know, you think, oh man, this kid, if he grows up, is going to be a really great adult. He's going to be a good father. You know, so those characters kind of represent ideas, right? A kind of kid. And that's appropriate here because that's what we do when we're growing up, right? We tend to put people in little boxes. It's like, oh, there's the athlete, there's the smart kid, you know, and maybe the worst thing that can happen to you as a preteen boy is not get put in one of those boxes where you're just kind of vanilla and nobody thinks anything about you. So Cutter really understands this and he plays with those ideas. And I think that's a moving aspect of this novel. Now, what I didn't like about the novel. Well, there wasn't anything I didn't like about the novel. I think that might be a first. So, you know, it's just really good. I am going to give it 4.5 stars out of 5. And you may be asking yourself, well, if you just love the novel and he doesn't have anything negative to say about it, then why not 5 stars? But that's just me. I kind of figure that a 5-star book is a book that's kind of somewhat, maybe even life-changing. It should be one of those rare books that maybe you come across one in a year. This book is excellent. It's just not that book. Right about now, you're going to see a younger version of me in Naval Officer Choker Whites, right about here. And if you click on that, you'll subscribe to this channel and we'll grow the channel. And when it gets monetized, it would be my great pleasure to begin every book review with a copy of a check that I've written, taking those YouTube proceeds to local libraries, because the more we can support local libraries, the more we support our hobby. And best of all, we can get good books into the hands of kids that can't afford books. And that's a great thing. So with that, have a great day. God bless.